Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Attitudes with Andy. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate your time and energy. If you're new here, welcome to the party. This is a place where we get to learn and grow together from the incredible guests that we have on so that we can be inspired to be our best selves. And today is a bit of a different episode. We are going to be hearing a beautiful story, and beautiful I mean by the lessons she's learned, from a lovely woman named Tallara. Now, this woman has gone through cancer in her mid-20s and also lost her mum as a teenager. So you are about to hear her story through that. I didn't intro her in person because I just wanted things to be a little bit different and a little bit organic. So here is a little warm up into the podcast, but just to let you guys know that we do talk about cancer, chemo, and losing a loved one. So if you think that that might be a little bit triggering, please feel free to obviously not listen to this podcast, but I truly think that you would really benefit from listening to this, and the stories and the lessons that she has learned is truly incredible, and I am in awe of this woman. So without further ado, here's the episode. Welcome.
Thank you.
I thought this won't be as prepared or anything I've done on my other podcasts, if you've listened to them, because I just want to hear about your story and your journey. Yeah. Which, thank you for sharing it, because that's brave. Yeah, it's brave. Yeah. So I would love to we're probably just gonna jump all there and everywhere.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Because I feel like there's so much that I'm like, I want to know about you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the C word.
Yeah. The big C word.
The big C word.
Yeah.
The big C word.
Yeah.
Cancer. Okay. I don't know about you, but because I've processed so much about yes, that happened to me. I sometimes will just joke about cancer, or I don't know, or just, be like, the C word, and then people are like, oh, do you feel the same?
I do, and I feel like just taking the fear out of the word.
And
I was listening to something and they said look at cancer as a lowercase little word, not this big capital word, and just taking the seriousness out of it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I do.
It's a little word.
Yeah, but I can imagine that.
But a big journey.
But a big journey. How old were you when you found out that you had cancer?
I was 26. So, 2020. Yeah, which just feels like a lifetime ago now. Wow. So crazy. And 2020 as well. That was just so much. The most crazy 2 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you find out?
Okay, so this is a bit of a journey.
Okay.
I love sharing this because as much as I don't like to focus on this too much, I think it's so awesome for people to hear the story of how I got diagnosed and how going through that has just really taught me I need to advocate for myself, and that really we need to be in complete control of our health. But yeah, so I'm just going to be so raw and just open book. And But yeah, so 2020, it must have been around March, something like that. I was running a lot, and I have my key and my phone in my sports bra on my left side. And I just remember noticing my nipple just got really, really tender basically. And I'd put my key in there, and I'd just be like, oh, that's a bit sore. And didn't think a hell of a lot of it. And then, I think a month or so went on. I thought, oh, maybe I have a bit of a cyst or something's going on here. So I just went to just a random DP, and she's like, oh yeah, it just feels like normal breast tissue. I'm not overly concerned, but she could kind of feel a bit of a lump there. And she's like, oh, do you want to go for an ultrasound? So this is, around probably end of March, went for an ultrasound. They found quite a small lump. I don't know how big it was, maybe under a centimetre. And got the report back from that, and it said it was a fibroadenoma, which is a benign like breast lump, and it's like very common. Like you Google it, it's like very common with women in their 20s, and I was like, oh yeah, that's
what does benign mean?
Oh, so it's like not malignant, so it can grow, but it's not going to spread.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're going to have like a benign tumors, like unless it's like growing in your throat or something or your brain, it's not really going to cause you, serious. Like it's not going to kill you basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm like, cool. It's benign. Like I'm just going to go with my life. Like I don't need to do anything else here.
Oh, you don't need to do anything if it's benign?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you can't remove it?
Oh, you can. Depending like where the benign tumor is or like how it's growing. Like if you have a benign brain tumor, because it will grow and like it will affect different areas of brain, you'll likely like that could basically kill you. But at that point it was like it wasn't really affecting me at all.
And you were just like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
You didn't think anything of it?
Nothing. I was like,
really?
Cool. I was like, yeah, like I'm in my 20s. I've got a fibroadenoma, like so normal. And anyway, some months went on and it started to like grow bigger and it started to get really painful. And then I started to have like discharge coming out, and I was like, oh, I really want this out. Like this is starting to get really painful and annoying.
And you still thought, oh, this is fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just ignorant to it all. And yeah, so I went back to the same GP and she was quite blasé about the whole thing and was just like, yeah, like, still feels quite normal, but I can refer you to go have it removed if you like. And anyway, I didn't have private health insurance at the time, so I just got I got put on the public wait list to have it removed. So I think it was a month after that, got a call from the ultrasound place and like, hey, can you come in? We've just got a referral from the hospital. Can you come in? We want to do another ultrasound of the lump. And anyway, went in and got that ultrasound done. And they said, oh, it looks quite normal. We're not overly concerned, but it's definitely grown. But we'll just do a biopsy to check basically. And I had the biopsy done and he said, okay, I'll give you a call back in a couple of days. I'll let you know the results. Got a call back a couple of days later and he's like, yep, it's normal. Like nothing's come back. It's just like normal breast tissue. You don't need to do anything. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like it's been biopsied. Like there's nothing else I can do now but wait and have it removed. And yeah, and that must have been like around July 2020. And then I just basically went on with life. And the lump grew so much. So once a tumor's like been biopsied, basically it like you've gone into it, you've like ruptured kind of the tumor wall. So it like the tumors, it just gets really aggravated. And yeah, so kind of once it was biopsied, it kind of gave this permission for it to like start growing quite rapidly from that point. So from about July until September, it just grew. Like my left breast was almost double the size of my right one.
Wow.
I had like this vein popping out. I used to have like wear breast pads because I just had like blood pouring out.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And here's me still thinking like, okay, this is nothing wrong. Like I can't do anything. And because I was working as a nurse at that time, I like didn't want to be that patient where it's like, oh, I need more tests. Like this isn't right. It's just like, what are they going to say? It's been biopsied. Like they're just going to be like, you've had the biopsy. Like you just need to wait now. And I think in my head, I was just trying to, I don't know. I remember thinking, oh, it's maybe an abscess from the biopsy. And I've just got this like pool of blood that's there. And yeah, just like crazy to look back on. And come September, I was just like, no, like I can't exercise. Like it was so painful. Like it was like a rock. It was, yeah, it was just really affecting my quality of life. So I went back to this same GP for the third time, and
I would have found a new GP by this point.
Well, lessons learned, definitely. And I remember going in the third time to see her, and just quite blasé once again. And she's like, oh yeah, like it's probably nothing, but if you want to get another ultrasound, we can do that.
Oh,
and yeah, she was like, she thought it might have like been a bacterial infection. And anyway, the next day I went back to the same radiology clinic and met with the same radiologist that did the second ultrasound biopsy. And so walked in and did the ultrasound first, and like that's kind of when like the mood just, without like nothing even had to be said, I think I just kind of had this feeling that this was going to be a big, like this was going to be a life-changing day basically. And yeah, so I had another ultrasound, and then they're like, oh, we want to do a mammogram. So it was my first mammogram at that point.
What's that?
So that's where they basically, have you heard of like women over 50? They usually say they do like regular mammograms, and they basically stick your boob in, they do it as like a surveillance thing for usually older women. And you basically put your boob in this thing and like literally squishes it down. Like you're lying there and it just squishes, standing up. It's full on. And so my breast, because it was like, had this rock hard tumor in it, it was excruciating. So I'd had that done. And they don't like doing mammograms for usually young women because like our breast tissue is very dense. So they don't usually do it just because it's typically won't give you a diagnosis, or like you can't really see much. But anyway, they wanted to do that, and then after I had that done, they're like, we want to do another biopsy. So that was like the second biopsy.
Is this all in one day?
Yeah, so I had the ultrasound, the mammogram, and the biopsy. Yeah,
God,
I was at this. I was like there for I think over 3 hours, all by myself, because I just thought, I was just going in for an ultrasound.
Oh.
And yeah, so had the biopsy, and I remember them having like 2 goes to try and like get this tumor, and they give you like adrenaline and things. You just feel like shaky, and it's just like really weird. And so I had that done, and I remember like one of the technicians, she's like, oh yeah, I think we know what this is now, and she like didn't say anything else.
At that point in your head, were you like,
oh, I was like, I remember sitting up and I started to cry and I started to shake, and I think without even anything being said, I just knew like I'd been here 3 hours, and I was like I think it all just kind of hit me. And then they did the biopsy, and then the technician said, hey, we want you to take a room in, or take a seat in this room. The doctor's going to be in. And so I walked in this room, and it was called the quiet room. It was like about, quite small, and there was like a bookshelf, and it's like your cancer journey. And I'm sitting there just like, I just remember shaking. I'm like, yeah, like this is, yeah, I don't know, it's hard to describe. And like I knew. And so
that you had cancer?
Yeah, I think I knew.
Yeah.
And so the doctor comes in, and he just sits in front of me, and he basically said, this isn't what we originally thought it was. This is cancer. So that's how I found out. And then it was pretty much like, he's like, chemo, radiation, surgery, PET scan, and just like all these things. And but then he said like, well, we don't have a biopsy officially, so but it's like, I know this is cancer, but we'll have to wait for the biopsy. So ended up, when I was sitting there, he left, and I just called my partner and just like broke down. It was like the weirdest phone call. And he's like in the middle of lunch at work, and he's like, I could just hear him on the phone, like, I gotta leave, I gotta go. And so he comes in and meets me there, and then we just like, it's the weirdest feeling to be in. It's just like your whole life has kind of changed. And I remember I just wanted to go down. We were living in Cairns, and I just wanted to like go down to the beach. So we like went home and got our dog, and just like went and just sat near the Esplanade. And yeah, but it was weird because we didn't have the biopsy yet. So it wasn't like, I don't know, we didn't have that final kind of like, confirmation. And then Friday evening, because that was Wednesday, I got a call saying we've discussed with like some specialists at the hospital, and I know he's like the biopsy was still like inconclusive. he's like, oh, we just didn't get enough, or it was inconclusive. But like, I know in my hearts of hearts, like, this is cancer.
Wow.
So then it was like Friday night, and he said, okay, so we'll need to do you'll need to have a mammogram guided biopsy the following week. So it was like the weekend was just like still kind of like left hanging somewhat. And we just went away. Like we went and booked a couple of nights away, and yeah, just, I don't know, just to be by ourselves and process it all. And then Monday I had a mammogram guided biopsy, which was quite horrifically painful again. And once again, like, if I had known, like, every time you're sticking a needle into that tumor, like, it's just aggravating those cells to like spread even more. And it's like, at that point, that was like my third one. And anyway, and yeah, and then got those results back, and it was, yeah, definitely cancer, definitely breast cancer. Yeah. So I was diagnosed with stage 3C triple negative ductal carcinoma.
And what does that mean?
So stage 3 means stage 3C pretty much meant it was over 5 centimeters. So it was 7 centimeters when it got found, which is insane.
Are they usually a lot smaller?
Well, depends. So like every stage, you got stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're all.
Oh, there's only 4 stages and you were stage 3.
Yeah. So stage 4 is like metastatic cancer, and that's they'll usually cast it as like terminal cancer.
Oh my God.
Like, so your statistics go down the further the stage. So stage 1, and it's usually classified, like, it's depending on how small the cancer is and if there's lymph nodes involved and if there's other organs involved. So I don't really recall like all the stages, but stage 4 is basically like you've got the tumor, but it's spread somewhere else. Stage 3 is, I think, your tumor, and it's depending on different cancers, like breast cancer's got its own staging. But yeah, it is. One was over 5, and I had suspected lymph nodes involved as well. But when I had the PET scan, there was nothing else that showed up. Which, I mean, I was just like, just on that brink because if I had waited a month, 2 months, would I have been in a position where then I was like dealing with stage 4 cancer?
Whoa.
And so triple negative as well, it's typically a very like more aggressive type cancer. It's like found more in like younger women. So it's not, so with breast cancer, you've got hormone positive cancer, you've got HER2 positive cancer, and you've got triple negative. And then you've got things like inflammatory breast disease and some other ones, but those are the 3 main ones. And typically hormone positive cancer, it responds to like hormone blockers, so they can treat it differently. And so that's typically got like a better prognosis. And same with the HER2, there's just different drugs that they have now. Whether it's triple negative, it's like they really only have chemo like that's the only treatment they have for it.
Fuck.
Yeah.
And so when you got the confirmation, like, what was going through your head?
Oh, it was just like, I wouldn't say I was fearful at that time. It was just like, okay, like what do I need to do? It was just like you had like your whole, like the world just stopped kind of thing. And it was just like, okay. And I'm very like, what do I need to do? Like, I'm very like list, like get organized, like plan. So I was just like, okay, like, what do I need to do? And it's just all about that. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to have to have all this treatment. And, so I feel like my cancer journey was like really divided into like 2 parts. But yeah, at that stage I was just like very much like a victim of like, oh, why has this happened to me? Like, I'm so unlucky. Like, yeah, just like confused and like angry and, yeah.
Of course. Like,
Yeah.
I think you have every right. And I think that would probably be so normal.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling my housemate about this podcast, and I was saying I'm just so excited to hear your journey, because I could not imagine like finding out you have cancer when you like understand it. Because when I had it, I was 1 and 5. And so both of those ages, I didn't know what was going on, you know, like I was just like, oh yeah, I'm just in hospital. Like this is normal, right? And like my parents obviously understood. I see photos of them. I saw my mum, like photo of my mum, like holding me in hospital, and you can just see in her eyes, like how like broken she is. And like as a parent understanding, but like, yeah, I'm just like, I couldn't imagine being 26, knowing what cancer is, knowing how many people don't make it, and being a nurse.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that also changed things because you saw the behind the scenes?
Yeah, definitely. I'd spent time working as like a student in like an oncology palliative care ward. And like where 90% of people who came in, it was like 30-year-olds with terminal breast cancer that would come in and die. And like 90% of the people that walked in were going to die. And it was just a really like, that's all I knew cancer as was you got cancer and you died basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you were having a pity party for yourself, rightfully so. And you're saying, why is this happening for me? But you weren't fearful at this point.
No, I think I was just so focused on like what I had to do. I think it was just like all the adrenaline. I was like, I just didn't have time. Like I was like, no, like and all like the doctors and that, there was no talk. And I think because I knew I wasn't stage 4, I was like, no, like it's fine. I'm going to have all the treatment. And like no one was coming in and saying like, you know, you've got 6 months to live or anything like that. It was like, you're just going to have to do this and this and this and this. And so no, I didn't think I had time to like really feel fearful. And I remember like before the PET scan, like I had already told myself, like that's before I knew. So they do the PET scan to see if there's other cancer.
Got it.
In your body. They use it to stage. And I'd already told myself before, like this is only going to be, I had made the decision this was going to be stage 3 cancer. Like I just made that decision and that's all I told myself. And I remember like waiting for that news, but I already knew what it was going to be. Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't let myself sit in that thinking the worst.
Yeah. You weren't like, what happens if there's more?
I was like, I didn't even let that thought cross my mind.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what happened like after you found out and they said there's only chemo?
Yeah. So it was so quick. Like it's so unbelievably quick. It's just like you get diagnosed and it's like within the next 2 weeks it's like bam, 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 bam. It's like just appointments and it was nuts. So they basically said because your tumour's so big and fast growing that they do something called neoadjunctive chemotherapy. So it's chemo first to prevent like metastases instead of just removing it. So if you have quite a slow growing breast cancer, or quite a small one, they might just do surgery.
Okay.
And then potentially do chemo. But with quite fast growing cancer, there's like no time to then have surgery and wait. It's very much just like, go have chemo. So it was like, I think I saw the surgeon first and they basically said to me, that's one of the first things they said is like, you will lose that breast. Like that will have to go. Like that's what they said is like, you will end up losing that even no matter what outcome you have from the chemo basically. So in my head, I'm just like, okay. So I'm just going to like have my breast chopped off, which is really hard to hear. But I started, first was starting chemo. So that was, I think I just didn't know what to I just wasn't, I don't know, I think I just went into it not really expecting anything. I was just like, I'm just going to do it. This is what I have to do. And so had my first chemo treatment and I remember it was a really like, we always made it really beautiful, like going to chemo. It was always like, I always had someone with me and we just kind of made it really fun. And after the first one, I felt quite bad. It was just like having a hangover that kind of never went away.
Mm.
And
Because it's fucking strong stuff.
yeah.
Because chemo is like killing all your cells, isn't it?
Yeah, it kills everything. It's basically poison.
Yeah.
It is
I mean, that's why your hair falls out, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just enough like to kill everything besides you.
Oh my God.
Basically. And yeah. And this is also like, it was so weird to like be on the other side, because I had like was nursing just before this was happening, and I stopped work, and yeah, it was just so crazy to kind of be on the other side of all this. But yeah, like I had started chemo, and it was the first lot wasn't too bad because I had a kind of a stronger one every 3 weeks, and then the other weeks were quite a mild one, which I didn't have too many side effects from.
What were the side effects from the strong ones?
So the first one I had, it was just like nausea. It's one of those things like at the start, like it was a progressive, like it was just every week it just kind of got worse, if that makes sense. Because at the start you're kind of still feeling strong, you know, but by the end it's just like you're worn out, and that's kind of when it most affected me. But yeah, just like initially like nausea, just like tiredness. Yeah, that was the first one I had, and I think after the first one, that's when I decided to like cut my hair short. So I cut my hair short, and yeah, I think I was like in denial. I'm like, oh, maybe like I'll be the person their hair doesn't fall out. Yeah. So, and you don't kind of realize how attached you are to like your exterior, like body. And like, yeah, I didn't think I was that attached to it or cared that much about how I looked, but yeah. And I think by the third chemo, that's when my like hair started falling out. Yeah, and it really does get to the point where it's like, it's just like, it was so dry, and like it was just like coming out. You just had to shave it, like you just couldn't even go out because it was just like coming out everywhere. And
yeah, like you'd brush your hair and like put your fingers through your hair and it would come out.
Yeah, it was just like yuck. I just remember feeling like yuck, like I just wanted it gone at that point. And so yeah, Ben and I made the decision that we're just gonna like just shave it off, and he was gonna shave his hair too. And it was like, because
Ben's your partner for context.
Yes, Ben's my beautiful partner. And yeah, we just like, it was like 9 p.m. at night, and we just like, it must have been before 9. We went to Kmart and just brought some clippers and just like went outside and yeah, just shaved it off. And yeah, it was like the weirdest freeing feeling. It was so freeing. But I remember waking up the next day and just like, oh, like I've got no hair. Like, oh my God. Like, it's just like, oh, am I going to go outside? Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the next day I remember I had to go get my port put in. And
your what, sorry?
Oh, so where they put chemo in, they put like a little port under your skin basically, so they can inject instead of going through your veins and causing damage.
That's why I have it. I call it my extra boobie. I have like a little mark. Hang on.
Yeah, it's probably the same. Yeah.
Is it that?
It probably. Oh, it's yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a little scar there.
Oh wait, let's see. Oh, that's a badass scar.
Yeah.
Battle wounds. I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, I had to go in. It was just like, I remember going into like the hospital where I like worked as well, and with like no hair, and like that was really tough. Yeah.
Seeing like your co-workers.
Yeah, I didn't go to the ward I was working on, but it was just a weird place. Like it was just, it was really weird. And yeah, so that was losing my hair, and then I think all in all I had 5 months of chemo. So I started chemo October 2020. Yeah. And I finished on the 8th of March 2021. And yeah, but I remember even when I started chemo, I'm like, and I knew what chemo could do to people. I knew it could, you could definitely get really unwell, and you get something called neutropenia, where you lose all your blood cells, and yeah, so you basically get hospitalized, and like you go on antibiotics, and like it's quite severe. And I'd seen so much of that happen or just people getting infections, and but in my head, I'm like, I'm going to be the most healthy, strong, like vibrant person ever going through chemo. And I was like, I'm not going to stop anything that I'm doing. And I didn't really.
And what were those things that you were doing?
Just like I was just going to just eat well. I was going to move. I was going to be outside. I wasn't going to like limit myself. Like I still wanted to be out in the sun and go swimming, and because they do, they say there's like things you can't do because you're at, a risk of infection. But I just remember like I still wanted to do everything and not be limited or not be this sick person basically.
And so had you flipped your mindset yet of like, why is this happening to me? The victim mentality?
No, not. I was really, really positive at that point. And I just had like, Ben was so extremely positive, and we made this mantra that we would take more than this would take from us. And we just said that throughout the whole thing. I was quite positive then, but I still was a little bit in that victim mindset, or I guess I just hadn't really fully awakened yet to what was happening. But what actually shifted everything for me was in Cairns. There was this beautiful cancer centre. It was like called the Couch Wellness Centre, and it was just for cancer patients and their families. And it was, they did. I mean, they had like nurses there. It was not a very clinical environment. It was just like very healing, and they had meditation sessions and yoga, and it was just like a way to really connect with others. And they did like gym sessions, and it was just like a really small little place to feel like really safe and to have support that like wasn't in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I remember like going there and just feeling like so welcomed, and it was just like such an incredibly safe space. And you could just go there with no hair and you would feel like okay, because other people wouldn't have hair there either.
You're like, hey, Goldilocks as well.
Yeah. But the best thing about that is there was there was people going through treatment, and there was people that were up to 5 years after.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it was still kind of a newish, I think it was like in their second year. So, but I remember sitting there, we were just doing like a little morning tea after one of the sessions, and I met this lady, and her name's Erica, and she's like such a dear friend to me. She's a lot older. She went through breast cancer. I think she was about a year out when I first met her. And I remember sitting there, and I had like, before that point, I was like on Google, and I was, reading. I was like playing this victim, like, oh, I've got triple negative breast cancer, and it's got like the lowest like survival rate. And
when you heard that, were you at this point worried that you wouldn't make it?
Yeah, do you know what? I didn't think this cancer was going to kill me. I thought it was going to be the cancer that came back that was going to kill me. So I was like, okay, I'll get rid of this. But then I was, I guess, fearful that, my cancer, it would return, and that is what would basically kill me, which typically is what happens.
Like as in it is quite common to get a second round.
Yeah, so like you'll have patients who are diagnosed with stage 4 cancer initially. So they'll find the primary tumour, and they'll like do a PET scan, and there'll already be metastases. But a lot of the time is, patients will have treatment for their first cancer, and then whatever it be, 6 to like, 10 years down the line, then the cancer's spread. They've got it in their bones, their liver, and that's basically when they'll most of the time say they're terminal. And there's not, they can still have treatment, but it's more just for quality of life. So I think, and seeing what I had seen.
Why does it spread? Is because they haven't got it checked up again?
So because the cancer cells can still, I guess, live. Like we all have cancer cells. And chemo, yes, it does kill cancer cells, but it's not like there can still be cancer cells there. Chemo also doesn't kill cancer stem cells, which can then create, that can then form new cancerous cells. They can be like, the cancer can just be dormant. So then you'll get like cancer reoccurrence basically, where there's still tumours there, and whatever the cause of that cancer was, it was never really addressed.
Okay.
And then so the cancers come back basically.
Okay. Sorry. Back to Erica.
Yes. So I met Erica and I remember sitting there and I was just like, I just said something like, oh, but I've got triple negative breast cancer and, oh, but I'm, I've got the lowest survival rate and just something like that. And remember like she just basically looked at me and said like, do you want to think like that or do you want to, like, I can't remember what she said, but she was just basically like, you can be a victim or you cannot be a victim. And like, that doesn't matter if what type of cancer you have. Like it doesn't matter. You have the choice whether you want to live or die from this. And she suggested this book to me, and this book forever changed my life. And I recommend it to everyone, like even people that do have cancer and people that don't have cancer. Like, it is the most incredible book. It's called Radical Remission by Kelly Turner, and that book changed everything for me. Yeah, everything.
Can you elaborate on the book?
So Kelly Turner, she did a PhD and so she found cancer patients who were terminal or had really poor statistics, or cancer patients that chose not to do conventional treatment.
As in conventional, as in instead of chemo, they went the natural route?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, we love that.
Yeah. So patients who just went all natural, patients who went conventional but it failed and then they did natural, or patients who did both, basically. And they were like all had dire prognoses, I think under 25% for 5 years. And yeah, so she actually she interviewed all these people who were like 5, 10, 20 years after like a terminal cancer diagnosis.
Wow.
Or that had cancer and just didn't have conventional treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And she did a PhD on them and found, I think it was 9 things they had in common that they all did. And it just gives me goosebumps, because up until that point, I didn't know people could I thought you had chemo, you had surgery, you had radiation, and that was it. I didn't know people could juice and heal cancer or change their entire life and heal. I just didn't even think that was a thing. I thought you just had to be a victim and you got your diagnosis, you just had to do what the doctor said, and that was it. And yeah, and so that for me, reading that was just like, wow, it just opened my eyes to this whole other world of healing, holistic healing, health, what truly is health. And that, yeah, reading that book was like, I need to take control of my health here. So yeah, that was it. And I'm so forever thankful for that meeting with Erica and for her sharing that with me. And yeah, we are beautiful friends today.
Aww.
And yeah, she's such a dear, beautiful lady, and just, yeah, so strong. So
wow. And so after reading Kelly's book, did you stay on your course of chemo?
Yeah, I did. I think I was like, no, I'm going to give this all a go. And I mean, I definitely, once reading that book, it kind of led me down other paths. So I started reading different books. I started listening to different things. It just really led me on a rabbit hole. And I started listening to different interviews and podcasts, and all I consumed was people who had healed themselves holistically, or survivors that were 5, 10, 20 years. That's all I started to consume. And I made the decision to not go on Google anymore. I was on I stayed on a Facebook support group, because I actually connected with some beautiful younger girls as well who had gone through breast cancer.
Yeah.
So I think I really needed that as well. But I didn't feel I didn't really read much else. I just consumed all this other stuff. And I'm like, no, I know I made the decision that I was going to do chemo, and this was going to work. This was going to, yeah.
And what was it like, what was it like reading all these stories and hearing about people holistically doing it and then still staying on your course of chemo?
I think at that point I didn't know as much as I know now, and I was still so new to finding out all this stuff, and I guess I didn't have the knowledge or the strength, I guess, to maybe look at different alternatives and whatever. Yeah, and I mean, looking back, I don't regret any decision I made. I made the best decision I could at the time for myself. And I look back and like, my cancer was so fast growing, and like I didn't have time to like go and juice and meditate and all that. Like I needed something that was going to like stop that. So I think making the chemo was the right thing to make, the right decision to make. But how I look at conventional treatment now, having done it all, is it's very much, it's a temporary, somewhat Band-Aid fix for a root cause. A temporary Band-Aid fix for a symptom, because that's what cancer is. It's basically a symptom for a deeper root cause. And and I believe that anyone who gets an illness, whether that's cancer or autoimmune or whatever, like there's always such a deeper root cause that we need to address to be truly, truly healed. And because I was like, I can't just do this treatment and just go back to my life. Because I was fearful. Like if I just do this, go back to my life, I'll get cancer again. Like why wouldn't I? Like if I've not really addressed what I needed to address.
Yeah. And what were the changes that you made compared to your old life to your new way of being?
So I kind of always go back to like Kelly Turner's like 9 healing factors, and also there was another amazing cancer survivor that I've been following online. His name's Chris Walk, and he had stage 3 colon cancer. I think it was like early 2000s. He had surgery but refused chemo, everything else, and just changed his entire life. So he set up like different modules as well that kind of like looked at like the healing is very holistic. So
yeah.
I had to go, where do I start? Probably the biggest one. So when I first got diagnosed, what I deep down knew was the reason was unsuppressed emotion. Unsuppressed emotion that I just never dealt with, never processed, never spoke about. I think when we keep emotion inside, it's just unreleased. Like that's what I think can form tumors. It's just all this energy just gets so trapped, and anything that doesn't get released from the body gets like trapped inside our cells. So releasing, dealing with grief, dealing with my emotions, finding a connection to myself. So like emotional and spiritual work was one of the biggest things that I had to do.
Yeah. And you say grief, so was those emotions, do you think, from your mum passing away?
Definitely.
Yeah. Because how old were you when she passed away?
So I was 16 when my mum passed away. Yeah. So she passed away at 54 from an ocular melanoma. Was originally diagnosed with the ocular melanoma when I was 8, I think. So had her eye removed.
Wow.
Had a prosthesis in, and that, I believe that was like the only treatment she had. And then she was fine. And then at 15, she was then diagnosed with the cancer recurrence. So there was still cancer cells within her body, and they basically metastasized. So I think when she was diagnosed, she had, there was tumors. There was a few tumors in her body at that point. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And that's just like so like, God, going through chemo and then like not having your mum there as well is just like next level.
Yeah. I think it brought about a lot of fear with cancer as well, seeing her pass. And subconsciously I felt like I was going to die young as well. And I think I had kept, because I had, seen her pass, and everyone else, I had lost other family members from cancer, and especially at work, like all I saw was people dying from it.
Yeah.
But she didn't have, I think by the time it was found, it was like quite terminal. It was more just like to prolong her life. So I can't really remember a lot. It still like I'm just trying to piece together memories because I think especially like during really traumatic times, we just
You black things out.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't remember much of like when you were 16, like is there a big gap?
Yeah. I remember bits and pieces, but like, yeah, so much of it is just such a blur. Like I remember getting told she had cancer. And I mean, you know, going back to when I was like 15, 16, like I didn't care about anyone but myself. I was just like, I want to be out with my friends. Like it's just, I don't care what's going on. Like it's too much. I just want to be doing my thing.
Yeah.
So I was just very like closed off, in denial, just doing my thing, just wanting to just be a teenager. Like how dare this happen to me? Like I just want to be a normal teenager and I don't want to have to deal with this. And yeah, and I mean I didn't feel close to my mum at that point because I was just felt like just really self-centered and just like didn't really care too much about my parents at that point.
Yeah. That's so normal though.
Yeah,
like I hope you don't I don't know, I hope you don't hold that against yourself. Have you forgiven yourself?
I have. So that was something I definitely needed to do. So I had a lot of guilt and a lot of shame that I held on to. And so she passed quite quickly. It was no longer than about 9 months when she got diagnosed, and just seeing her just like waste away and just having to go to hospice and not coming out and kind of seeing her in their last days, like that was, I didn't realize like how traumatic that was for me, and I just like never dealt with that. And probably up until, you know, less than 2, you know, before my cancer journey and before I started dealing with this, I couldn't even have a conversation about my mum without crying. Like I could not even deal with it.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I was like, you've clearly like processed a lot because you're speaking about her.
Yeah.
So I was the exact same. I could not like even say the word mum without like crying. Yeah. I think it's really beautiful when you do get to a place where you can like talk about them, and then you can like bring them into conversation if it comes up. Like if my mum's favorite song is playing, I'll be like, oh my God, this is my mum's favorite song, you know, like, and then you can like bring them into your world again a bit more.
Yeah. Because she's still here in every way of my life, and I had just shut it off, and I remember like there was a song they played at her funeral and I just could not listen to that. It would just break. Like it's weird. I felt like I had to be so strong after she passed, especially for my dad, that and just being in denial, and like I just didn't grieve. I never grieved. So, you know, I would hear that song and I would just be like, nah, like I would just really like try and push so much down. And last year it must have been early last year, I remember playing that song and I just let myself cry. I just let myself express every single emotion to that song, and I just felt the relief and the lightness, and like, okay, I'm allowed to cry. I'm allowed to feel everything I need to feel. And I just finally let myself release and feel that after, you know, she passed away like 12 years ago now. It wasn't until, you know, about a year ago that I finally let myself do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
I feel like this. Oh, no, sorry, you go. I was going to say, I think there's also something just so special about like grief, which is a weird way to think about it. But like now, anytime I'm just like feeling that, like my heart is hurting because I miss my mum so much. Like I'm going to be honest, like it actually doesn't happen very often nowadays because like, as you said before, I genuinely feel like her energy is here and she's like inside of me. Like I truly feel like that.
Yeah.
And but in those moments where I am just like, oh, I just really want my mum, or like, you know, and your heart is hurting, it's just like, now I'm just like, that is so beautiful. Like, I just have so much love for my mum that like it still hurts, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Whereas before I used to be like, no, I need to push it away.
Yeah.
I can't talk about it. I can't cry. Like, I need to be strong for my family, which is such an ironic thing, saying I need to be strong for my family, because I'm the youngest. And then I remember, like, we would barely ever talk about mum. We would barely ever like cry in front of each other about mum. And I remember one time, like, just bawling my eyes out to my brother and just being like, I just miss her so much. I'm like, why don't you cry about her too? And he's like, I do, I just don't do it in front of you. And I was like, that's so ironic, because if you did it in front of me, I would feel a lot less alone. And so, like, I think being brave is expressing. Anyway, that was my tangent about grief.
No, I completely relate. And so a big lesson is just expressing everything that we feel. So that's kind of been a big part of my journey, is and just starting to, I spent a lot of time journaling, because I had a lot of time off work, which was the most incredible gift, the gift of time. You know, going from working shift work, like, just, I kind of had never stopped. Like, I studied, and then I moved, and then I started work, and I never just stopped and could just purely focus on myself. And it was the most incredible gift. Like, the time I had just to sit with myself, to learn, to journal, to meditate, to contemplate, to cry, to sleep, to do all those incredible things, to spend time properly connecting with others, and to not be in this stressed fight flight state. And it wasn't until I stopped work and like just stopped did I realize how I had just been chronically stressed.
Wow.
Fight flight, living in complete fear for my life for years. And it wasn't until I stopped that I finally had the awareness of that, and I had the awareness of how other things in my childhood had affected me. And I started realizing how every behavior, every way I was, there was a deeper reason to everything. And I didn't think this because there was always a reason why. And that kind of led me down a path to really looking at why I had cancer. I mean, I can't sit here and say I got cancer because of this, this, and this. Like, no one can be certain in that sense, but I can sit here and be like, I think there was, or I know there was multiple factors that contributed to me getting unwell, and this didn't happen. I wasn't unlucky. This didn't happen out of nowhere. Like, cancer like this had been growing for probably years, and it just wasn't until I actually had a physical tumor that I, got diagnosed. But it's like, cancer takes years to kind of manifest into this tumor. So I think it was, it wasn't something that just happened overnight.
It's crazy that you say, like, I was in fight or flight and I was so stressed and fearful, and I'm just like, that is not your energy now. That's just not. Your energy is so beautiful and calm that I can't even comprehend that was you. And I'm curious, like, do you look at your cancer and say, like, that was a fucking blessing because I had to change?
Oh yeah. Cancer was the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me. It was the most beautiful thing. Yeah. It changed. I don't see how I would, I don't know, like, it saved my life, because I think the way I was living was killing me. And I think it's as simple as that. Like, the way I was living was killing me. And I was deeply unhappy, living without purpose, just so trapped inside my body. Like, I never spoke truly. I never expressed. I just felt, every time I could feel this, like, lump in my throat, and I could just feel it. And I was like, I don't feel that anymore. And all these like weird things that I used to experience, like this stomach pain and just all these symptoms that I've just now correlated to like such a deep emotional, like that stomach pain that was caused by something deeply emotional. And kind of since changing so much, like so many of these things have just like gone away. And I feel like, and I guess that's what holistic health is. It's just like all encompassing, like all areas, like the emotional, the physical, the spiritual, and working on them all to like be in complete balance and be in complete health.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm actually just like tearing up because I'm just like, I don't know how you speak about it and how you like have flipped from like when you first found out, you're like, why is this happening to me? And like in the victim, and now you're like, that was a fucking blessing, and you've just like changed your life. And it's really beautiful because Ben, your partner, has been with you through this whole journey. What was that like? Because I can imagine, as being in Ben's shoes, it must have been really terrifying seeing you go through that, because like my sister always was like, oh, you're amazing for going through cancer, and people say that to me, and I'm like, look, maybe, but I'm hats off to my family who had to sit there, who were not in any control and had to watch me go through that. And so like, what do you think that was like for Ben?
I think initially it was like, he was like me. It was just like this kind of adrenaline, like, okay, what do we need to do? Like, how can we, fix this? And so he was just, he was so strong and so supportive and just absolutely incredible. And there was no doubt in his mind, like, it was like, I'm going to, beat this, or like, I'm going to be okay and we're going to be on the other side. Like, he had no doubt. It was just so incredibly positive. And, he still went to work. Like, why I went through all this, and I guess spent a lot of time at home and healing myself. Like, he still rocked up. Like, he got up, went to work every day, and he just still lived his life, even though like our life was like, falling apart in a sense. There was so much happening, like just him getting up every day and doing his thing and going to work, but then still being there for me. And it was interesting. So the end of 2019, like, Ben decided to, go sober. So he was heavy on drugs and alcohol, and he made that decision. So the end of 2019 to give up and to be sober. And I feel like him being in that space, and like, we both love our like personal development, and we're just, and spirituality, and we're just so like, him being that person and him being in that space where, he didn't need anything else. I didn't kind of like think about it until now, but it's just crazy how he was in that space to be able to fully care for me. He didn't show like a lot of emotion though. Like, he never really showed me if he was like scared or frustrated. He was just like always supportive of me. But and it wasn't until kind of life had slowed down and kind of all, I had finished all treatment, and it was all that kind of crazy cancer stuff had kind of finished. It wasn't until that point that we just kind of like, I could see he was just so burnt out, and just like he just gave so much. And that just like broke me to kind of see that. But I feel like I still needed to take so much care of myself. So I was kind of in this place where like, I can't give you what you've given me. And I can even tell you now, like, 2 years after all this, like, we still, the flow-on effects, like, we still deal with that. Like, we don't forget like everything that's kind of went on. I still see Ben, like, I just want to give him a break, you know what I mean? Like, I just want him to just have his time now, because I feel like the last 2 years have just been so consumed around me. But I mean, I look at carers and that support person and just think like they're just incredible. They just give so much with just nothing in return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's just incredibly strong. And I don't know, if I would have been able to do this without him.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ben.
Yeah.
He's a beautiful human.
He is. He's helped me grow even before all this. Yeah.
I think that he's in his element now that you guys have moved to the Gold Coast.
Yeah, he is. He's thriving. I think we both are now, and yeah.
Oh, I know. You guys really are. We didn't even tell everybody how we met. I've had people on the podcast who like I've just met in the randomest places.
Yeah.
So let's say how we met.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny is I wonder if we recall it differently, but
You go.
I mean, there's nothing too crazy to it. But I was walking this is before I actually moved to the Gold Coast. No,
okay.
I was living on the Gold Coast, but I was just staying at a friend's house for 2 weeks, and then I went overseas for 3 months before I fully moved to the Gold Coast. But anyway, and I was walking their dogs, and then you guys were walking your dog, and I'm pretty sure there was no one else on the beach. Then for some reason we just started chatting. Maybe I said something about your dog because I always love people's dogs. And then we just started chatting, and then I was like, you guys should go to Cool to Be Conscious because you had just moved to the Gold Coast. Yeah. And then Bob's your uncle. Now we're all in the same community, and I see you guys about.
I know, and then we just like bumped into each other here and there. Oh, I remember it the same, and I remember you saying about your podcast. I think Ben.
That makes it seem like I shamelessly plug. Ew.
I think Ben asked you something like, "Are you doing anything like, outside of your like normal job to like?" I don't know. Do you have any passions or anything?
Yeah,
like
he
that?
did ask me that. Yeah,
and you're just like, oh yeah, I think I'm just about to start this podcast because you hadn't started it, or like you didn't have episodes out yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this girl's cool. Like, how amazing. And then I've been a listener ever since the first episode.
Oh,
yeah.
Stop.
But you mentioning Cool to Be Conscious is so crazy because I feel like that has just changed, like, I know my life since being here. Yeah, just the connection and just the space, like, everything about these boys, yeah.
Yeah.
So
it is amazing how it just takes, like, one person or, like, one thing can really impact your whole year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had someone reach out to me and say, hey, you should come to this group that I run where we have, like, deeper conversations.
Yeah.
And I hadn't moved to the coast yet, but I was like, yeah, it sounds awesome. I'll be there once I move. And I didn't really know anyone on the Gold Coast. And then I went to that. And then they were like, you should come to Familyhood. So then I went to that and they were like, you should come to Mega Run. And through those 3 communities, I've just made all my greatest friends. And I'm like, if that one person hadn't reached out to me, where would we be?
I know.
Yeah, it's crazy. So to wrap things up from your beautiful story, thank you so much for sharing that. You spoke so well as well. I'm just like,
thank you.
I'm really proud. Yeah. I only teared up, but we didn't cry. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
I was journaling today, like how I wanted things to go and flow and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, I really just want you to be able to like express and share your story because it's so beautiful and it's just so incredible. Like to go through that and the major changes that you've made. Like, I hope you don't ever take that lightly. Like, I hope you're like, fuck yeah. And are you going to celebrate on the 8th of March, like another year in this world?
Yeah, I kind of like, I don't want to live my life like in terms of like years. Like, I'm a year cancer free, I'm 2 years.
Okay.
So, yeah, I to be honest, I don't think about it like that. I have this piece of paper that I wrote. I wrote it like, I think when I was like middle of chemo, and I wrote, I think I wrote a date in 2051, and I wrote as if I'm speaking on stage, and I wrote, hi, my name is Tallara. I'm a 30-year stage 3 triple negative breast cancer survivor. And I made sure I was going to be older than my mum was when she passed, because I just needed something to hold on to, that like, I'm not going to die young. I'm going to live till I'm like bloody 100.
Yes.
And so I have that stuck there, and it's like, that's my just reminder, and that's like my knowing that I am living and that I'm cancer free. And I just constantly, it's not about like I am going to be, it's like I'm healed, I'm healthy, I'm cancer free. And I had always, when I was going through treatment and everything, I'd always told myself that I had already, every part of the journey, I had already said what was going to happen and how I was. And yeah, because I think that that's our belief system, and that's, if we tell ourselves that, that's what our body's going to like create. And so for me, it's just like, I'm cancer free, and I'm going to be cancer free for the rest of my long, incredible life. And yeah, I don't feel like I need to live in years or waiting for a certain date or, so I'm just like fully I'm just embodied in this like incredibly healthy person that I am now. And yeah.
Wow, that's really beautiful. I've never thought of like not celebrating, because like I like to celebrate. Like each year I like to do something like quite big, usually physically.
Yeah.
Like I did a 25K run, and I like my mind was like, this is celebrating another year, because like for me, the chemo effects like really have in the past made me really weak. And so like moving my body is like, it just feels extra special, because I'm like, I remember being so weak that like this is such an honor. Like I just do something every year. I don't have a specific date or anything, but I just like remind myself every year, because I never want to forget what a fucking blessing it is to be in this world. And like, you know, they said to me like, you know, I was in the room when they told my dad that I was going to die in 3 months. I'm like, I don't think you should do that. Like, I know I was 5, but like,
you shouldn't, no, you shouldn't tell anyone that.
No, don't do that. Anyway, but like, I never want to forget that, because like anytime I'm like stressing or like overthinking something, which like doesn't happen too often, but like when I do, I look at my hands and I just go, fuck, I'm in this world. Like I got a second chance at life.
Yeah.
How stoked is that? And then like no problem is an issue.
Nothing can ever be as bad as that.
Yeah. Do you feel a lot more like, carefree, because you're like, nothing can be as bad as that?
Yeah, I try. I think, I just remind myself that that I can just die at any point. Like I can just die next year or the year after, and to do everything I want to do right now. And I'm not gonna lie, like for me, dealing with fear is something I'm still working through, and just, you know, with this new way of life, I want to do it because it makes me feel incredible. I don't want to be in a place, and I know like I'm susceptible to doing this, is like if I don't do something or I put too much control, it's like, oh, if I eat that, or I or if I don't have my routine, or I don't, take my supplements, etc., then I'm going to get cancer again. And so I'm just, now that I'm kind of like a couple of years down the track now, it's just working through that, where like I don't want to live this life controlled by fear. And this year, especially, like I lived still in a lot of fear this year, just with a lot of my decisions, and just really limited myself, just coming from a place of fear. So that's, I guess, what I'm really taking on in the next 12 months is just making decisions from like a really loving place, and just not knowing like I'm okay, and going back to like I'm healthy and I'm well. Was it almost that you were putting too much pressure on yourself to eat really good food and always be, moving or stuff like that? It was almost like the opposite, because then you're doing it out of fear. Exactly. Like, if I didn't get like my 8 hours sleep, or I wasn't in bed by 8 o'clock, like I would then start creating this thing in my head, like, oh, then I'm gonna like, oh, but I got cancer because like I didn't sleep properly, and now I'm gonna get cancer again because like I didn't sleep, and like just being like catching myself when I'm like having those thoughts. And because I want to live, and I don't want to like, I want to be spontaneous, And I think it's just that finding that balance between doing everything that I know is good for me, because I truly, truly have never felt more incredible in my whole life. But yeah, coming back to like feeling sick, like from the chemo, like
Yeah.
just so immensely grateful for what my body is capable of.
Yeah. Yeah, because chemo fucking destroys. Have you had any, have you noticed any side effects from your chemo?
Not really. Like, I feel like I did really, really well to kind of get really detox it out yeah. In terms of like, probably the one thing is just like my cycle, and just kind of getting that, because chemo just affects that, and I'm really grateful that I don't have to take any hormonal blocking medication. But yeah, the effects of chemo still, like, just in like just getting my body back to balance. So I think I'm still trying to deal with that. But and yeah, and I didn't touch on like the surgery as well, and I guess dealing with the psychological effects of that.
Of like losing a boob?
Well, yeah, I had both removed. That's what I decided to
do. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, so I had the chemo, then I had both my breasts removed with reconstruction, and then I had the radiation after that. But
wow.
yeah, it wasn't kind of until more recently where I've really sat with how that has affected me psychologically, and yeah, and just being okay. I guess forgiving myself for like making that decision where I do feel I sometimes do feel less of, or somewhat like permanently disfigured, and yeah, so that's
wow,
a process of just forgiveness, and just like coming back to my self-worth and detaching from the external. Yeah, but like I'm so content with myself in more ways than I ever have been. And yeah, because I think if people saw who I am now, what I look like now, how I act now to 3 years ago, it's very, very, very different.
She's been reborn.
Yeah, for sure.
And I can imagine losing your boobs would be so difficult, because I guess it's like something that you think makes you a woman.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I can imagine, and especially like just having them, and then like having smaller ones or whatever. But you look like you do have boobs.
Yeah. I had had a beautiful surgeon who did reconstruction. I actually had my final implants put in this year.
Amazing.
They're definitely not. They're not breasts. But they've given me some form of like quality of life, and my femininity back. Yeah.
So was there a time when you just said nothing?
No, they're called tissue expanders. So I had the mastectomy, and then I had these like balloons basically put in. So even when I woke up from surgery, I had something there. I think I would have really struggled. I really pushed to have that surgery done, because I just knew I would have really struggled if I didn't have anything. And I mean, I know some incredible women who have decided to just go flat, and it's so empowering and incredible. But it's still, I think there was a point where I just like took away from like what had happened, and like just dismissed the fact that I actually had to grieve for the body that I didn't know. And I mean, being with Ben and having him being so supportive has helped tremendously. And then I know that I am so loved as I am. Yeah, but so that's been hard. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I've never actually heard someone like kind of talk about that journey of like losing your boobs. So
yeah. And I mean, if I could go, I think a lot of the time surgeons and things like that, especially women who are like in that journey, like there's a lot of like fear and pressure to like make a decision to, have your breast removed. And I guess knowing a bit more information now and stuff, it's not always actually going to give you the best outcome. And I mean, would I have made that, if I know now what I knew then, would I have made the same decision? Probably not. But that's something I have to forgive myself for. But yeah, I think if I can just say to anyone like in a cancer journey, it's just take time to see it. Like, you don't need to rush. Like, cancer, it's been there for a while. You don't need to rush to make these decisions. You can do your own education, just sit with it, like ask, there's so many different like people to speak with and different doctors and different therapists, and there's just so much out there. And not feel so like pressured or having to make a decision out of fear.
Mm-hmm. And that there are other options.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, when you dive deep into like, yeah.
It's crazy. There's so much that they don't tell you.
There's so much. And so I guess that's where I am now, is like just really passionate about sharing, I guess, first of all, taking control of your health, not putting it in the hands of like just one doctor.
Yeah.
And that we are our own healers. Like, we can heal ourselves. And I'm just really passionate about, allowing others not to feel like a victim, and like that we can,
definitely,
we can be in control.
And I like that, like, my personal belief, like, I'm definitely a way more lean towards like the holistic health, just because of my journey, and but I also believe that there's a time and a place for both, and it's just like, as you said, your cancer was so extreme that maybe chemo was the thing that you needed. Had you found it earlier, maybe holistic. But like my first cancer, we did chemo because my parents didn't know any other option. Second time we did chemo. But it was just killing me. And it just wasn't working. And then a friend of ours recommended this book as well, not Kelly's book. Shout out to Kelly though. It's called Cancers, Cures and Causes. Very straight to the point.
I love that.
And then they read that, and then they were like, we're going holistic because she's dying and there is no other option. And then that's what cured it. And it's just so nice that like first time chemo did it, second time natural way did it. And now that's why I really do believe in holistic health. And I think had I not gone through that, I think I would be a completely different person. So I too am very grateful for my cancer. So grateful for it.
I think we can look at anything in life, and we choose what we take from that. I remember listening to your story. Was it Diaries of the Wild Ones? I think he interviewed you.
To that. That was the one where I was so nervous before. I was like, oh my God.
Because that was like the first time I kind of like heard your entire story. I was like, oh my God. Like, your parents just taking you onto that island and just feeding you juice. I was like, oh, like.
If you guys want an elaborated story of this, I'll link that one. But yes, thank you so much for sharing your journey.
You're so welcome.
I really appreciate it. And just to end the podcast, I've got the quick 5. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and you just have to answer it whatever pops into your head. Okay. The first one is, what is your favorite quote?
Is that we are the most important person in our journey, in our life. Like, we have the power. Like, we have it, no one external to us. Love that.
What is your favorite book?
Oh, I want to say Radical Remission. That's definitely life-changing. What's another one? The Surrender Experiment, Michael Singer.
Okay.
You've read that one.
I've heard of Michael, but
Michael Singer, he's incredible. He's got a couple of books, but He just puts life so simple.
Oh, Michael. All right, I'll have to read that one.
Yeah.
Stunning. What is your morning routine?
All right. I get up at 5 every day, and I don't even think about it. I just get up, and it's the best time of the day. I'll get up. I've just started just looking outside and just getting that natural sunlight in my eyes first thing. Then I'll sit down. I'll do the 3 rounds of the Call to Be Conscious breath work.
Yes.
And then I'll meditate for about 20 minutes. And then I'll do some gratitude, some journaling. And then I'll sit down and I'll have my coffee. But I'll sit there and I'll just, it's like that moment of connection with myself. So, yeah, I'll just really savor that. Then after I do that, either be a bit of yoga, or I've been back doing some strength training. So I've just been kind of off to the gym. Yeah, off to the gym and doing that, and maybe getting a sauna in a couple of times a week, and then come home and, have my breakfast. Yeah.
That's so special, like getting strong in the gym.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. All right. The 4th question is, who is your biggest kind of inspiration, or like person you love to learn from, or you can say Tony Robbins if you want.
Ooh, my biggest inspiration. I want to say Chris Walker. I know I touched on him before, because he is just what he's doing, like with his advocating and sharing knowledge.
Got it.
With other cancer patients. Is incredible, because I've learned so much from him, and he's thriving. Like, he is just thriving after his cancer. So I listened to his podcast on the way here, actually. So he's
king.
Yeah,
we love
he's
that.
a big inspiration. Yeah,
cool.
Chris Walk, everyone.
Chris Walk. Thank you. And the last question is, if you could implant a habit, a belief, or whatever into whoever's ears are listening to this, what would be that belief or habit or mindset?
Slow down and just spend time doing nothing with yourself in stillness. It's like not even just about meditating, but like in that silence and in that stillness, that's where you will find everything. That's where you will find yourself. That's where you will find the answers. That's where you find peace and connection. And from that place, then everything else will come. But I think just sit and be.
Wow.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
I'm going on a 10-day silent retreat.
Shut the front door. My friend just did one.
What?
Yeah, she loved it.
Yeah.
It was a challenge, obviously.
Yeah.
I always thought, I was just like, if I went in a silent retreat, I would just mime to everyone like, ooh. But then apparently you're not allowed to make eye contact. You have to like look down. I'm like, what the no.
But she came back and she was like, thought it was incredible.
Yeah, but she's already like, she's like a meditation teacher. So her mind, she didn't struggle with. Because I would have thought that you would struggle because you'd maybe just get in these thinking loops. She was like, I struggled physically because you're sitting down for 12 hours a day to meditate.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going on a tangent. But thank you so much for coming on. You have a beautiful Instagram page where you show bits of your journey. What is your Instagram if people want to find you?
So I've just started back on Instagram, but I'm definitely going to be posting more. So it's a_wonderful_life, but with 2 E's at the end.
Yeah. And I will put it in the show notes so people can follow. And it's really beautiful because you've got posts of like your journey and you're really opening up and showing different sides of things. So I really appreciate that. If you guys did enjoy this, feel free to screenshot it, put it on your story and tag us, as we'd love to know who is listening. You can also leave a cheeky review, click subscribe or follow on whatever platform you're on. And thank you once again for coming on.
Thank you so much, Andy.
Woo! And I'll see you guys next week for another episode. Bye.